My name is Leslie Stainton. I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm doing this, as you might be able to see from the secrecy of my basement in Ann Arbor, and I'm not very skilled at this technology, so I hope this works. I am a descendant of many enslavers in and around Georgia in particular, but also some in North Carolina. But the person I have focused on most in my thinking and research is my great-great-great-grandfather on my mother's side, a man named Francis Muir Scarlett, who emigrated to the United States as theoretically an impoverished 14-year-old runaway from London. He came to Georgia in 1799 and connected almost immediately with an enslaver. He became this man's overseer and very quickly married the planter's daughter and became an enslaver and cotton planter in his own right at the height of his wealth and power, shall we say. Around 1860, just before the war, he professed to own some 500 human beings. I began researching his story in earnest and his legacy in 2010, and I discovered along the way many horrifying stories. I also discovered stories that from well beyond the Civil War, from the Jim Crow era of racial terror, and I found evidence, strong, compelling, awful evidence of Scarlett family involvement in those crimes as well. I think I always knew that we had been enslavers. It was something we, I guess, talked about, but never truthfully, never actually acknowledging the horrors and atrocities and crimes that our ancestors committed. To do that would have been not very nice, certainly in the early 20th century Georgia. The thing that I grew up hearing more about than anything was the coincidence that Margaret Mitchell chose our family name Scarlett for her notorious heroine, and Mitchell was indeed aware of our family on the coast. There's a letter documenting that. So that was actually sort of weirdly a source of pride in our family. When I set out to research this story, of course, as is true for so many people who have given their stories on this site, I encountered shocking, horrifying, shameful things that my family did. And I also could easily see and understand how that behavior led and continues to lead to the kinds of behavior that so many of us whites continue to commit wittingly or unwittingly in the 21st century. And my hope is that by telling the truth about what happened and making the connections, connecting the lines between what our ancestors did and how we behave in this country today, and I mean that's a collective we, that we can really begin to acknowledge the terrible privilege on which our white existence in America has been built and continues to be sustained. In terms of reparations work, I've made many efforts. I think first, earliest, and chief among them, I shared family. I found linked descendants of people that my family enslaved in the 19th century. And I was able to share with them, thanks to family documents in my possession, the stories of their ancestors. And these are incredibly courageous stories, in particular of two people, a man and a woman, who very bravely and boldly made it possible for their family, immediate family in 1862, to escape to the Union Army and seek refuge on St. Simon's Island outside of Brunswick, and from there on to build lives. I've come to know and love the descendants of these people, the descendants I've met mostly in and around Brunswick. We've known each other for over a decade, and it's just one of the most humbling and beautiful experiences of my adult life, my life really. I have continued to see them almost on a yearly basis. COVID being the exception. I've shared with them, given to them, some pieces of porcelain that I inherited from my grandmother, which my understanding is came from the plantation, and I like to think that perhaps their ancestors handled and worked with those pieces, and that they're now in the possession of that family gives me great joy. I hope it gives them joy and some sort of sense of connection. I've also contributed to organizations, joined Coming to the Table, was on the board of both Coming to the Table and the Slave Dwelling Project for many years, and I'm now working to find ways to make actual financial reparations with the family I've gotten to know and love so well. I've limited means, but I'm working on figuring out how to stretch those means, and obviously I want to do this work in conjunction with these beloved friends and family members. And I just am so grateful for efforts like this to get the word out, to tell the truth, to stop the lies, which, as we all know, are very difficult to stop. There's a lot of resistance in this country to telling the truth of the crimes on which this land is built, and that also includes the genocide of Native Americans. So we have a lot to atone for, and reparations are a key part of that.